Hi, my name is Alexis.
And I'm Anna.
And I'm Evelyn.
I'm Victoria.
And I'm Katie.
We are the Marmalade Mermaids. This week, our flag means craftsmanship. Season 1, Episode 6, Theater of Fear.
Craftsmanship is a word that's dear to my heart because I have a type, and that type, unfortunately, are artists. So in high school, I kind of honed that this was the guy I like. And he was a very talented artist, has made some of the most beautiful art I've seen. I've got to go to museums with him where I've seen beautiful pieces of art that have affected me for the rest of my life. But I was talking to him about art one day, and he said he was in art college after high school, and we were having this conversation, and he said that what he wants to do is become a craftsman. He doesn't want to just make art that communicates or expresses something. He wants it to be of a high quality. So whatever his message is. And I find that so interesting because when I talk to artists, craftsmanship is a very evocative word for them that they get really excited about. Like, there's a quality of an apprenticeship in there. There's a quality of a spark of something that's genius, right? But then it's polished and made beautiful. But what I didn't expect is for this artist friend that I wanted to be more than friends, to look at things I had made and for him to see an artistic quality in me. And all of a sudden something clicked, and I'd been told I was creative. I'd been told that I had all of these talents, but him being such a good artist in my eyes, when he saw that, I felt like I could be an artist too. And I think that that's what craftsmanship is, right? And that's what I see a lot going on in this episode, where someone is seeing that spark in somebody else and letting them apprentice. So I think a craftsmanship, it's not something you ever finish, and it's not even necessarily one piece that you produce and you're like, oh, that's high craftsmanship. I think it's the way you interact with people, because I think that there's a big community element in craftsmanship. That's my story.
Thank you. Are we ready for the 1-minute recap? All right, the episode starts off with a really cute, Izzy is seeing like a little montage of Ed being really cute and sweet and like practicing sword fighting and like getting really comfortable with the crew. And Ed teaches Steed about a way to avoid dying. Izzy pulls him in and says, hey, you gotta stop. We've got to remember the plan. You got to put this puppy down. And he gets really upset about that. And what happens after that? I'm nervous now. They plan. He tells this scary story. Blackbeard's like, oh, I've never been scared. They make up this plan to punk these other shipmates or these other the Dutch people, and they come over and it's going so fast. I'm just gonna stop there. All right, do we want to just open it up to the group for craftsmanship? Or
my first point of craftsmanship, I think, because so that idea of community involvement was so strong to me that it might have been in the storytelling that I first saw craftsmanship, this idea of Ed saying like, oh, well, I don't feel fear, but if I did, here's the scary story. Because you can have a great story, right? But if you don't have a great storyteller that can draw the reader in, there's not a lot of craftsmanship to that. So there is a weird alchemy that you have to be able to read the audience. And I think Steed is generally really good at that. But in this episode at the beginning, when Ed is telling a story, he is like really got that storyteller craftsmanship.
Would you consider even before when they are practicing fighting? Well, I mean, obviously craftsmanship, like you have to practice. Mm-hmm. So we see an element of practice here, but then like knowing how to take a blade, I don't know. Is that like part of craftsmanship?
I think so. And I think I didn't think about it when I said this is the topic, but I love that idea that I just kind of like paid attention to as I started thinking more about craftsmanship and talking about it, that there is something of a teaching element. Like, is it a craftsmanship thing if there's something you can't teach? Yeah, but it's sad because it's going to die. Right. So he teaches, he doesn't just do it like, I'm going to take the blade, but he like teaches that to Steed.
We're told that Izzy is such a great sword fighter. He's got this big reputation, but yeah, we don't get to see him like pass it on. We don't get to see him exhibit his craftsmanship until like the end of this episode.
Right. Evelyn, did you see some ideas about craftsmanship in this episode?
Well, just like on the terms of like an artist exuding some sort of craftsmanship, I kind of wished well, no, actually, we got to see some of Swede, but I feel like Swede is like the underdog of like he has possibly a lot of creativity to him. Like he can sing, and then even I don't know, I can't like just from what like watching the scene and seeing his expression when he was about to tell his story on like when Steed had told like someone tell a story, he looked like he was actually thinking of something and had an opening like first line on the day I was born, the rain looked just like blood. And it's funny because I've been listening to this podcast called To Ramble, and they have like one of the things that they recently did that I was listening to was kind of like talking about first lines from books or something like that, like what can like really bring you in, what are really bad ones and what are really like what they would think are good ones and everything. So I just thought of like Swede, it looked like he really was trying to think of something that was, you know, very much that can get someone's attention right off the bat with the first line in a story. And I was like, oh, I want to hear more of this, whatever story he was about to think of. So on that topic of like at least like an artist person, I think Swede, I would love to see more of Swede's like artistry that he possibly, I think he absolutely has.
Because it was an interesting line, right? Like,
It
I was
was.
born in a hurricane, but he was like, I was born in the. I want to hear that story.
I do.
The
Like I'm like, oh,
ocean looked like blood. Yeah.
that was one of my quotes. I was trying to choose that because I'm like, I'm absorbed. I want to know the story now.
I think it's so interesting to have this topic after strength because I see some real blends of like, is that your strength? Is it your strength because it's crafted and you've practiced it?
Because I guess I feel like there's lots of approaches to this, so I'm trying to figure out like how I want to enter it. I guess actually first I want to say about like Evelyn, what you said about the Swede, I actually really appreciate because I didn't catch any of that because I'm incredibly dismissive of the Swede for so many reasons. And it's actually I like, and it's so funny because my thoughts about him were very that I was like, oh, well, maybe I'll bring this up today. And I was like, and now that you just said like that beautiful thing that you connected with him on, I was like, oh, I'm gonna go rewatch it and give him a chance. And so because everything you said, I completely missed. And I'm like, oh my gosh, because at first you start talking, I was like, oh, I'm like, interesting. Like, because I am, like I said, dismissive and clearly so dismissive like remember the singing, but don't remember. I'm like, did he really say that in the episode? So good job by you. And so thank you for that. I really appreciate that insight because it's really now got me thinking differently about him. And I had talked anyway, so I really appreciate that insight. And so I need to go back and rewatch. And so I'd like to comment more on the Swede, but now I can't because it would just be a different approach. um, and then gosh, there's been some interesting things. I guess like maybe so because one thing I thought was like about craftsmanship and like the community thing, or anyway, that spark that Katie was talking about is that and I was thinking about an apprentice like learning the specific thing that person did and then making it your own, but then also like being provided an environment to find your spark. So that extension of strength that you guys were talking about, like being given that. And it's so interesting because we get all of that. So we get Steed, we actually get different people being apprentices. And then we also get that community environment of people being able to find their spark because the Swede gets an opportunity to sing, right? And so he's not following anybody's footsteps. Lucius gets to cut off his finger. You know, Black Pete's whittling,
Yes.
sparked by this moment that actually wasn't part of the theater of fear, but was part of anyway. So now I'm like, oh my gosh, look at all these people that got this spark. And also but also like those that got to be the apprentice, right? And then and get to maybe do something you wouldn't have done before and then grow that and then you find a different spark. So I don't know. My mind's reeling with all these different entry points into craftsmanship in this, which is really cool. So I guess those are some of my random thoughts.
Do we think Black Pete was an apprentice under Buttons for whittling?
Italy.
Because it seems like
Or from
Buttons has, it's like something that he always does. He has his summer teeth. And so I wonder if Black Pete was learning whittling from him.
I love that. I had forgotten he whittled in the other episode. I liked looking at kind of each character. Now, this is where the line between talents and craftsmanship kind of blurred for me. But I liked that we saw little hints of their, I guess it's strengths again, but Roach got to almost do surgery and Fang is he's an artist. And we got, Lucius has these skills that he has honed, his artist skills, and just some different of their strengths and talents and how much of that, do they get a chance to practice, get a chance. And I love the theater of fear because they get a chance to kind of shine and share.
For something I forgot to say in the beginning is that when Alexis and I were talking, I think craftsmanship is really born of growth mindset, right? You have to have a spark, and a spark is going to be helpful. But once you have this spark, we can give you some teachable skills that you can become better. And growth mindset, I guess technically you wouldn't even need the spark, right? That we could just decide to learn something and really go about it in a very strategic way to make that a goal to learn. But I liked this idea that Steed might have a spark in being a pirate. And this is part of that growth mindset track of him ascending to piracy.
I feel like we also see that on the other side of the coin with Ed as well, kind of progressing to be becoming not this title that he has being Blackbeard, but we're slowly starting to see more of a human part of him and everything. And Steed, I think it's just funny because it's although yes, we are starting to see Steed becoming more of a pirate and everything, but he's still very much Steed. Whereas Ed is such a so many changes we're seeing in him compared to Steed becoming more of a pirate and Ed becoming more of a person and not just this pirate. So
yeah, I wonder where they're launching to, right? I liked episode 5 because Ed got to kind of try out being a gentleman. And in this one, we see even more so Steed is trying to put on this, I can throw off a really good theater of fear. I can really be intimidating.
And he literally puts on black, which we hadn't seen before, other than when they switch clothes. And so that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that before, how much when you're talking embody, because he changes hair. I love the way he slicks down, and then gets the little, and then and of course, and it's so funny because
so theatrical.
Right. And so at first I thought that's the theater thing, but then it serves a couple purposes by taking on that theater persona, but then also that is him again taking something that Blackbeard gave him and then making it his own, and then as they come, they turn towards each other, which is interesting. And I thought of the word that I was thinking of earlier, duality, because I was polarized is not the right thing, but the duality of Steed and Blackbeard is interesting, right? Because we end up having more of the yin and yang, where you get a little bit on each side as they really become one. Anyway, but yeah, no, that's interesting because I hadn't even thought about that when we were talking about like what Steed's doing, and then yeah, putting on the black turtle mock turtleneck.
Anything else about the episode we want to mention that's not about craftsmanship? Just
I just want to like point out like things that we weren't planning on, but like that came up. Like Romeo and Juliet is all over the place. Love that there's a duel that ends with a pox on both your houses. So I was super excited to see that like show up again. And I love that this craftsmanship that we talked about. I think we talked about it in strength. And I can't remember the context of what we did, but the 10,000 hours thing is the same thing, right? And like
yeah.
the spark and then the beginner's mindset that we're talking was it growth mindset? And then I thought that was like, that's just, I just love this like stuff I wasn't planning on that we just have these threads that show up, which is just, it's just fascinating to me. And it's so fun. Again, like things I wasn't expecting.
This episode was a lot of fun. I liked how there were a lot of characters that featured. It was a fun one to watch where maybe episode 5 was like not so fun and it was a little bit gross. I mean, it was important, but it's like
the fish eye and
yeah, it's uncomfortable. And this one is
Just makes you want to be a pirate.
episode. Say it again.
Just want to makes you be a pirate.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a hootenanny.
or at least ride Pirates of the Caribbean. Say more, Alexis, where you say just saying it's really fun.
It's interesting though, because I don't feel like we have as many of the through lines and like the big ahas, even though it was a lot of fun. This is just a really fun one.
All right. Any last thoughts about this episode before we Florlegia it up? Okay. Evelyn, what's your line?
It's gonna be what I said before. On the day I was born, the rain looked just like blood.
Victoria?
So the good news is my dad was a dick.
I chose he doesn't kiss, no one likes him.
I'm going to do come back. It's just a dream. And Anna?
There's something witchy afoot. Can I get Alexis or Katie? Could you just read all of it just so we have like it all together?
On the day I was born, the rain looked just like blood. The good news was my dad was a dick. He doesn't kiss. No one likes him. Come back. It's just a dream. There's something witchy afoot.
Do you think it's about one person, this he, or is it got some multiple?
Oh, I think it's
The
got multiple
comeback,
layers.
the comeback, it's just a dream, feels like you need to have another entity, another person there.
Unless the and I can't remember if this is kind of what you were saying in the beginning, but unless like the first two is like a couplet, and then the last two are a couplet, then that's somebody talking to them, right? So like on the day I was born, the rain looked just like blood. The good news is my dad was a dick. Come back, it's just a dream. There's something witchy afoot. Oh, that feels like that. Those are like a different voice to me.
Mhm.
Yeah. Then another little kid like just pops up. My dad was a dick. Like he doesn't kiss. No one likes him.
Well, and I can't get Roach's voice out of my head saying, come back, it's just a dream. Like, I wonder if there's another way to have a tone for that one. If we switch the last two, there's something witchy afoot. Come back, it's just a dream. It really reminds me of Midsummer Night's Dream or Shakespeare in general.
I don't know. I feel like there's something, I think all these ideas, there's something about how you structure it,
Mm-hmm.
but I can't quite figure it out. But yeah, it's definitely, there's multiple voices. And is the I the same as my dad? Is the same as he my dad?
Yeah.
Do you want to read it as it is now, Anna, and then we can hear it?
Why don't we have, just in case, why don't we have like Evelyn or Victoria read it?
Oh, like how it is?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. On the day I was born, the rain looked just like blood. The good news was my dad was a dick. He doesn't kiss. No one likes him. There's something witchy afoot. Come back. It's just a dream.
I love the way you read that. It makes it sound like he's a dick because he doesn't kiss.
I'm sorry, that's been stuck in my head reading it that way.
Oh, that's what makes him a dick. Oh, sweet.
I like it.
Shall we try another round? All right. Anna, do you want to say your first one for the next, or your line first for the next round?
Be careful what you ask your God for. She might just answer.
Ooh, that gives me chills.
That's gonna be mine.
Oh.
No, I want it in there. I realize like, oh no, I want all the quotes in there. So someone else takes it. I win and I win again.
Thank you, Ed. Alexis, what was yours? Next one.
Probably my favorite in the whole episode. You will rue it long and you will rue it hard.
Mine is plumb the depths, man.
Mine was Muse, why have you forsaken me?
Knives are knives, meat's meat.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Be careful what you ask your God for. She might just answer. You will rue it long, you will rue it hard. Muse, why have you forsaken me? Knives are knives, meat's meat. Plumb the depths, man.
Man,
That
Victoria, when you read it, it sounds dirty.
what can I say? See, one of my constant references is Friends. I'm Joey. I'm disgusting. Every time Joey says something, makes it dirty. That might be a perfect text. Like I don't that all that like it's so it all goes together. I think
Yeah.
that.
I didn't think it was existential. I mean, I didn't think it was dirty. I thought it was existential in the way you read it. It
Yes.
came across as very existential to me.
That's as I'm in it, I was like, oh my gosh, because we start off like, be careful what you ask your God for. She just might answer. And then you're going to rue it long and you will rue it hard how she answers. And then the person speaking back to God, Muse, why have you forsaken me? She answers, knives are knives, meat's meat. And I don't know who's saying the last line, plumb the depths, man. I think that's a perfect set of text. I love it.
It's a guardian angel. It's like, you got to get through this. Plumb the depths, man.
Yeah, I think it just goes with the knives are knives,
Yes.
meats meat, plumb to depths, man.
That's fantastic. I love it.
I think it's very much Steed's journey, but it's also the journey of his crew, and then Blackbeard and his crew get kind of caught up in it. That this is very much like, we didn't know this is what we were looking for, but this is what we went on to. Like, this is how it's working out. But Steed's like, this is what I asked for, and this is how it's working out.
Yeah, I feel like that first line, be careful what you ask your God for, she might just answer, goes back a lot to our first discussions about like, what does Steed want out of this? And how did they all get here?
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
It's interesting.
Yeah, I like that, Anna, that you invented that, because be careful what you ask your God for. She just might answer. That's some sagely advice that someone's giving, right?
Yeah.
And then somebody else who's kind of asked their God that is, you will rue it long and you will rue it hard. And for this individual, if it's Steed or whoever has decided to listen to that sagely advice, but still ask their God for something, is like, Muse, why have you forsaken me? I really like that it's almost, I see those three parts and then it goes back, now it's God's voice. Knives are knives, meat's meat, plumb the depths.
I think plumb the depths, man, could be the opener of like, figure out what your heart wants, plumb the depths.
Oh,
Then
okay.
be careful what you ask for.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Ooh, I really like that. Knives are knives, meat's meat. It's all kind of going back to me, that whole, we're all going to die. Like, at the end, I don't like it when people are like, we're just here in meat suits. That kind of, I'm like, that's kind of crass. But it's very much like, this is just mortality,
Mhm.
That's really interesting because I take it as like as more of like living to your destiny. Like everybody's just doing what they're gonna do, what they were kind of like built to do, right? A knife can't be anything else but a knife. And the meat is just gonna be meat. And so I see it as this like beautiful like acceptance of like the world and nature, and like it's not good or bad because everyone's like living up to what they were made to do. But your interpretation I can see too. I hadn't thought of it that way. So I like, again we could go back to duality of like
Yeah.
how to approach this and whoever's reading it, and I think that's what
Oh.
happened. Like someone reaches out to their God and they get an answer, and one person's like, "Oh, this totally tracks," and the other person's like, "What?"
I just wanted to say, like, okay, with what you just said, Victoria, I couldn't help but connect it to like when we got a flashback of Steed's like childhood with his dad cutting off the chicken's head and everything. It's very much like earlier, this is Steed. Like, this is what you asked for. You want to be a pirate. Like, be careful. This is what you're going to come through. Knives are knives, meat's meat. It's the same thing. You're going to use a knife to possibly, kill something. And no matter what it is, chicken or human, it's the same.
Interesting.
That's so funny, Evelyn, because you just said that, and this made me think of Ed and Izzy, where Ed's sort of like wanting something, wanting Steed, but then it's like, are you really prepared for like receiving this person who's going to change you?
Yes.
And then thinking about, the relationship with Ed and Izzy in season 2, you sort of get to understand like more of the depths of that. But, Izzy kind of holding Ed to account for the persona of Blackbeard. Like, this is who you are, so this is who you have to be, and knives are knives and meat's meat. And and having that tension between the two of them in this episode, and also just having this sort of like a conversation. So I think it's interesting. It could be a conversation internally, it can be conversation externally, it could be a conversation over several episodes. Yeah, again, it's fascinating, these lines put together. I think again, it really, and then you could tie it into our flag means death. Like our flag means death, and this is what the poem is. Yeah, interesting.
Also, you're gonna kill me, but Romeo and Juliet, like Montagues are gonna Montague, Capulets are gonna Capulet, and if a knife is a knife and a meat is meat, sorry, the knife and the meat are gonna meet someday, and so bam.
Yeah, knife's gonna win every dang day.
But the knives are knives, meat's meat. I think that line in and of itself is just so great because like it is what it is. It goes back to that. But knives are inanimate objects that are temporary, like that are not temporary. They're tools. We can find knives that are really old, but if they're made with great craftsmanship, they can be sharpened up and reused. If they're obsidian, they can be, like stay as sharp as they were. And meat's meat, like I guess you could have petrified meat or whatever, but it's going to decay, it's going to rot away, and its purpose is very temporary. So I like that. Longer lifespan in knife and that more temporariness than meat. Maybe I'm getting too off the track here, but
it has an ashes to ashes feel.
Yeah.
It does, but when you were talking, Katie, it made me think back to craftsmanship of there are different types of knives that do different things based on the person who's wielding them and the intention behind them. So you have a surgeon with a scalpel who's using the knife, and cutting flesh that's meat, but again for a particular purpose, even if it could be sort of gruesome or upsetting. And then you can have someone who's, very using something like a hatchet, who's very, again, like maybe, cutting off the goose's head or something like that. Like, this is just food. I don't care. This thing isn't alive. It doesn't really matter to me. And so again, you can have this callousness that can be super destructive. And so I guess, yeah, that's what just thinking about like the apprentice and that master thing of, yeah, knives are knives and meat's meat, but it's really the person who's holding it and what their intention is that's going to kind of create then, whatever the experience becomes and how it moves forward.
No, totally. And then Anna, that made me think of like the interaction of the two, right? Like what you were just talking about, like the chef's knife versus like the sword, even, right? And then I thought about like, then I wonder like, is liver meat?
Oh.
We don't even know what that does. But that's interesting too, because the interplay of meat and the art, like the person wielding the thing and then navigating the anyway.
No, that's fascinating. If you can track like the knives in this episode and the uses of like flesh in this episode, because then that comment takes me back to the very beginning where Ed is like, stab me, like run me through. And then it, makes me think of in season 2 where we understand later that like that's foreplay for pirates when they're like, stab me, And Steve doesn't know what's happening, but you can see like Ed's delight when this thing. And I remember watching the season 1 and be like, what is this moment? And then watching other pirates stab each other in season 2 and be like, oh, now I understand what that moment was about.
Or even Calico Jack and Whippies. He's like, I'm not going to stab you, but Whippies.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Violence means something very specific for pirates. It's definitely foreplay for pirates.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I love it. Knives are knives, meat's meat, takes on a whole other meaning.
Told you it was dirty from the start.
Alexis was right. It's dirty. She was right from the beginning. She knew.
You're right.
Immediately caught on.
I thought I could get one past y'all. I can't.
Love it. All right, blessing. Are we ready for blessings? In this episode, I have to bless Ed. He has this trauma and he was able to share it in a way with the crew in the beginning of the episode that it was like it wasn't Brene Brown way, right? But he didn't flood them with his trauma. He just told them a story about the Kraken to entertain. And sometimes when you talk about traumatic things, it can be so personal that you're just breaking down, right? But you can tell that he's really crafted this into a story. But then he's able to go back and really be vulnerable and open. I mean, granted, he had a little bit of a nervous breakdown and just fell apart, but he's there sitting in the tub and he's really able to be vulnerable to Steed in a way that allows Steed to connect with him and to take care of him. I don't know, like Izzy will always take care of Ed and he will always take care of Blackbeard without asking. But Ed is able to realize in that moment that he needs some caretaking and able to ask it of Steed. And I think, that we haven't done that. But that's the way we build trust, right? Relationships of trust. One of the things that we do is ask for help when we need it. So bless Ed, because he's learning how to be a big boy and a pirate. And that's hard to do.
All right, Anna, who's your blessing for?
My blessing is for Roach. I love Roach. Roach is great. Roach, you don't know if Roach has been trained on how to, run an infirmary, but he's going to do it. When it comes up, he's like, here we go. I'm just going to make it happen. He's super calm about it, super casual. I think Roach, like Buttons, is one of the few people who actually works on the ship because he has to. And so, yeah, I like Roach's approach to life. He's like, well, whatever, let's make it happen. Let's do what we got to do. But also, he cares and he wants to make sure that, Lucius needs this. He's not just, I'm going to amputate to amputate. He's like, no, this is just what needs to happen. But I also think like he knows who he is. And so he's like, I don't know, it might take 1, 2, 3. We'll see how many swipes it takes before we get this finger off. So let's Roach. Doing what needs to get done, I
don't know if I can do this, but can I bless Black Pete's and Lucius's budding romance? Because I thought it was cute. And we got to see a more sensitive side to Black Pete, who I always feels like is trying to exude this like, yeah, I'm great, I'm cool, like I have all these stories to tell and everything, and I've worked with Blackbeard and all that nonsense. But and like just seeing their like relationship, I feel like I really like it and I want it to continue because I think it's kind of creating a better version of Black Pete in general because he's being seen who he is from what I can tell, like Lucius with how Lucius drawing people and like how he's been complimenting people and everything. I think it's been a really good thing for Black Pete in general. So I just want that relationship. I bless that relationship and I want it to continue.
All right, Victoria, who do you bless?
Well, lucky for me that Evelyn thread the needle on that one, because if she's going to bless the relationship, then I get to bless one of the people. I do want to bless Black Pete because in tying this together in ways I hadn't thought about craftsmanship, one of my favorite moments along with vulnerability in this moment, which maybe leads to like him like leaning into more vulnerability for his relationship, is how excited he is that he scared Blackbeard. So when Blackbeard talks about like he was afraid and he's like, but Blackbeard's like, but Blackbeard never gets afraid. The look on his face, the performance is iconic. And it's so subtle and so satisfying. And you feel that little person inside of you, like getting validation for something you did. And so what you said, Katie, at the top, like with the spark and then community, and I just ways that Black Pete ties all of that in a beautiful, little craftsmanship, vulnerable bow is just so blessed Black Pete, because now he's gotten this validation. He's been vulnerable. He's gonna keep rumbling with vulnerability. And I echo Evelyn's blessing as well for like for where they're gonna go with the relationship. And so yeah, I bless Black Pete.
And I just want to say, I love that moment because at the very beginning of the episode, Black Pete is sitting at the feet of Blackbeard when Ed's telling the story.
Yeah.
He's sitting right next to him. He's like, Blackbeard, tell us the story. He knows a good story. It's so sweet. And then to have it end where Blackbeard sees him and he acknowledges that he did a great job. And then you see this expression on his face. You're like, this is everything Black Pete has always wanted.
Yeah.
And he also gets Lucius, who like kisses him, and you can tell. And again, like his face is like, oh, he likes me. It's just bless Black Pete. He's so great.
Mm-hmm.
He really is. And Black Pete, you've said it before, Anna, that this whole series is just about Black Pete. And it really does. It tracks, especially from season 1 to season 2. You're like, yeah, it's kind of the story of Black Pete. Poor Steed. He thought it was his story. But no.
Steed may have more lines, but that doesn't mean it's about
I will
him.
take a bigger place in your heart. Yes.
May I do my blessing?
Yes.
Okay, I would like to bless the Swede.
Yay.
It was funny because it was kind of down to Black Peter the Swede, and I'm glad no one said the Swede. But I love that the Swede gets to be the songbird and gets to surprise everyone with talent. But really, the moment I love is where they're like, "Oh, that's not scary." He's like, "Well, maybe it doesn't have to be about scary. Maybe it can be about self-expression." Right? Like you're taking this opportunity and turning it into what you want to make of it. Right? I love that. Just being creative and thinking differently and using the opportunities you have in creative ways that are really going to showcase what you can do. Love it.
Yes.
Anna, season 1, episode 7. What shall be our theme?
Discovery.
Ooh, that's very good. Wait, is this the oranges or is this the
This is the oranges.
Calico Jack?
Oranges.
Oh,
Yeah.
Until the next time we meet to talk it through as a crew.
Knives or knives meets meat.
Knives are knives. Meats meat.